Welcome back to Junction 119. This is Kellan,
This is Casen.
and we are back 2 weeks in a row. It's nice to be able to actually do this few weeks in a row. I was just telling Casen before I hit record that I honestly did not have a whole lot of time to prepare for today's show, so I'm just going to be upfront with everybody and apologize out of the gate, including to you, Casen. I'm sorry. How are you? We're recording this on a Friday, so it's going to be a Saturday before this goes out. How you doing? Nice hat, my friend.
Yeah, thanks. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Ready to go into the weekend here.
Yeah, yeah, I can do that. And that's honestly really nice whenever you and I can kind of do this on, say, a Friday, because it's sort of like, well, we can kind of, we literally are talking about the last week on the end of it. So
Hmm.
it's cool, but we are going to start with a specific piece of news that was kind of big in relation to this show this week. I figured it would be a good thing to do. We are going to bring you some of the weeks, and then we're going to go into some football of what we don't cover in of the weeks, I should say. And then we
Yeah.
are going to close it up, talking up to at least up to episode 5 of Agatha All Along. I'm not fully caught up to the amount that are out right now, but it's kind of the closed chapter, as Casen has described, the first half of the show, of the miniseries. So to open things up, Casen, I would like you to kind of discuss what I put on the top of our lineup for this week. Bronny makes his debut because I figured that this was kind of, you have said on record on this show that LeBron is your favorite professional athlete of all time, give or take when that's been hot or cold. But literally, there was some news that developed within hours of us recording this show. And I figured that would be a kind of a good transition to like, hey, we can talk about our initial reaction and then what's come of today, Friday, October 25th, when we're doing this, 26th by the time you hear this. Kason, why don't you set it up for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so first of all, there was uh a debut from I'll prematurely give one here. Dad of the week goes to LeBron James
Yeah, I
for
agree. That's a good one.
the debut of LeBron and Bronny James playing together for the Lakers against the Timberwolves. Uh, I guess just backing up sort of on just the context of the situation, like absolutely like incredible feat that this was even able to be done.
I
I
agree.
mean, uh, for somebody like LeBron to be playing at the caliber he's still playing at for this long, and having a career long enough that a kid that wasn't even alive when he started in the NBA, it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. So
It is like at a very base level sense, if you take all of the pomp and circumstances around it completely out of the equation, there's a reason why this doesn't happen. And there's a reason why this is the first, like, father son duo to really like see playing time together in the NBA. The amount of circumstances that would have to come together for this to even happen is crazy, considering the longevity of LeBron, his son ever getting into the consideration to where he was going to be an NBA draft pick, which I know that's where the controversy comes in. We were talking about it on this show around when
yeah.
JJ Redick became the coach of the Lakers, and that remains to. We will discuss that going forward here, but at a very base sense, I am happy for the James family. It is they had their moment. It
Mhm.
was pretty cool. I do have a little bit of a different angle at it though, in terms of it, but I'll save that for we're still in kind of the positives. Um, People crushing this because of the nepotism. I mean, I remember saying to you, Kason, that the NBA and this world are full of it. What's one more player using his power? I mean, yeah, I'm that's not really what irks me with this. Um, what, well, there's another angle to this that I want to say, but I want you a chance to rebuttal to that first.
No, yeah, I mean, I'll say, like, look, I mean, we've seen, like you said, we've seen nepotism kind of all over the place in every industry. Um,
It's just the world we live in.
and so it's just, like I mean, I don't have any issue with it. I mean, if Bronny was drafted, maybe a year or two earlier than he should have been, and he's not totally, ready, uh, that doesn't entirely matter. I mean, if the goal was to just get on the court early enough to be able to play with his dad. So I mean, and that goes hand in hand with the news that came out, which is that he's basically going to be, spending a lot of time going back and forth between the Lakers and the G League, South Bay Lakers, um, which is probably, for the best to get.
Well, the news is, well, I don't know about going to and from, but he's after the Lakers like road trip, he's going to the G League. If LeBron wasn't on the team, I don't think he'd ever see the league again. If I'm being completely
Yeah.
honest, I mean that's kind of where I'm at. I look at this as an angle of, and I can't shake this. The whole thing was staged. Obviously, this whole thing from the get go has been staged 100% for LeBron. It feels very much a for LeBron moment. Whether or not you ask Bronny James behind closed doors if this is something he really wanted, I'm sure there's part of him that's probably a little bit like, if I was going to reach the NBA, I don't think even he can deny the fact that he's definitely right. He's in the NBA right now because of his father. I mean, that's 100% the case. But the other thing that I can't shake is, I heard someone say, this is not an original thought, but I want to build on it. The best moments in sports are not staged. They're just not. They just kind of happen, a confluence of many things coming together to make the moment incredible. And that's not what this felt like. This 100% felt like 3 to 4 to 5 forced check boxes had to happen for this to even be a consideration, let alone happen. And then they check in at the same time. It feels very unearned, is what I'm trying to say. And whether or not you want to look at it that way or not, I'm not a LeBron hater. I'm really not. But like, it felt more like an embarrassing roll your eyes moment than it really felt like, okay, like LeBron, like Bronny deserves to be here, and this is like legit. Like, I what I'm trying to say is, in the historical context of this moment, it goes down. Yeah, they're the first duo. They're the first duo to quote unquote play in the NBA together, father son duo. But let's not forget how that happened. In other words, it kind of taints the moment. You see what I mean? I really think it does, because I'm always going to think, yeah, when Bronny was in the NBA, when he definitely shouldn't have been, because his dad's LeBron James, you know? And in a situation where you don't necessarily want your kid to be in your shadow, this is like as definition as it gets. That's that's kind of where my brain goes with the whole thing. Like, yeah, it's a special moment for LeBron. It's kind of all the way around embarrassing in every other context. But that's all I got. That's all I'm gonna say. I did get a little bit of a chuckle when it was said that LeBron was going to the G League. I'm like, yeah, keep him there. If you're actually trying to win.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I
I
sound
will
so
say,
harsh, but I'm just being honest. Someone's got
no,
to say it.
I definitely
Like,
get that perspective. I mean, I will say it. I mean, he played 3 minutes. So I mean, he was 0 for 2 on field goals, so it's not entirely like he was played, at the detriment of the team.
right.
I mean, yeah, I
I mean, my
let me
thing
ask you,
is,
let me ask you this: would it
sure.
change your perspective on if Bronny gets significantly better and is actually like a quality depth piece that they could have, like, say in a year, or
Yes.
like, would it change your opinion if he
It would
actually
change. It
gets
would change.
NBA?
No question. Definite yes to that question. It would
Okay,
absolutely change.
okay,
What happens in Bronny's career from here on out, 100% can change this to me, because then it's like, oh yeah, we all didn't realize that he was going to carve himself out an amazing career, because then he changes the narrative. But if he becomes just a scrub in the league, well, then I'm going to remember this as being. But no, absolutely yes. If he is able to carve out and do what you just said, that will change this for me in historical context. Has to.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that's fair. I mean,
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean,
we have to
I
take it
think
for what it is
no,
right now in October
I think that
2024.
yeah, I just think yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that a lot of people will agree with you that it was premature to take him, but it was sort of a thing where they had to appease Le GM,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, absolutely. They had to. And when the essentially draft pick is rigged to get Bronny James, it's like, okay. Again, it comes back to, look, this is the circus the Lakers are right now. They're in their they're in their LeBron twilight year phase, and the Lakers will happily move on. They can take this spectacle for all it is. Like we said, hire JJ as the coach. This is the kind of stuff you're getting. And that's what the Lakers kind of are.
I will say, I mean, it hasn't really been, a ton of data yet, but I mean, it does feel like JJ at least knows what he's doing in terms of like he kind of has an idea.
Well, I would hope.
I mean, I think I don't know if you saw it, but there was this clip going around of him talking about the basketballs. And he said he was putting in a notice to the league to stop using like brand new basketballs because they're like frustrating for players to play with because they shoot different, they bounce different. And so if you're practicing with like well-used basketballs in practice, and then you go out into a game and you play with a brand new ball, the bounces are going to be different. It's going to feel different.
That is interesting.
Like it could, throw off your shooting pattern. And it's something that like only a psycho like JJ would think of as a coach. So I do at least appreciate the perspective he brings because I mean, if you haven't really been exposed to JJ that much, he is a psychopath. Like he's an incredibly intelligent dude who has the mind of like
sicko mode, man.
Yeah,
the Sicko's account on Twitter or /X.
He definitely probably would have gone to like Harvard or Princeton if it wasn't, basketball.
Well, I mean, went to Duke still though. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, he probably been able to get to Duke anyway, but
yeah.
So yeah, he's kind of like a computer that way. So it's really interesting to sort of see his
and shout out, that's why his podcast Old Man in the Three is so good. Like, he's one of those podcasters that real recognize real. I feel smarter about the game of basketball whenever I hear him talk. Just flat out being honest, So, hey, let's see what happens. Let's let it go.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see how he does because he has a different approach. He's got a really unique, I would say, perspective on some things. So I'm hoping for the best. I mean, I don't know how much coaching he's doing, but
wouldn't it be really cool if JJ just became an incredible coach in the NBA and just never looked
back?
It would be kind of amazing.
Yeah, it would be crazy.
He becomes like, title contending, whether it's with the Lakers or whatever. He becomes like actually an amazing coach and just way better coach than he ever was a player. I mean, that's the kind of stuff. That's what I'm talking about in sports. The greatest things that kind of happen. So
I also almost wonder what would happen if like he's there until LeBron retires and then he goes back to Chapel Hill. Or he goes back to Raleigh at Duke after John Shire bombs out and can't do anything.
It definitely makes you wonder if he wants to go to the college game, that or he could be part of the Lakers rebuild. I don't know. What do you want to do that though? Exactly. If you're going to rebuild a team, I don't necessarily want it to be there. But
JJ as the head coach at Duke would be like a monster.
Would be like, that is a little bit alarming. You just saying that it is probably like lights out. Barring if he's any semblance of good in the NBA college game. Oh man, I can only JJ Redick like 10 years from now on the sideline. That is actually terrifying. If that actually works, that would actually be really scary. Jason, stick a pin in that. But anyway, that's a very cool clip if that ends up happening. So moving on, you want to jump into of the weeks?
Sure.
I'm kind of doing mine on the fly. But obviously, there's a few huge, news stories that we probably should. But you've actually prepared some, so why don't you start?
I also wasn't able to really prepare a ton, but there were just a couple things that I wanted to bring attention to. I will start with my dog of the week here, based on the games last week, and that goes to Navy's Deshaun Peele. Cornerback. I don't know if you heard about this, but Navy absolutely annihilated Charlotte.
Yep.
And Deshaun Peele got 2 pick sixes against Charlotte. I mean, absolutely insane defensive performance on that.
Yeah.
for one guy in college to get 2 pick sixes in a game, let alone like Navy.
Yeah,
So
Navy. Again, the ship keeps rolling, as do the Black Knights.
so yeah, we've talked about it. I keep an eye out for the fireworks that are gonna end up happening on the end of the season for that, because it could be like crazy implications with happening with the Army Navy game. So
Either way, I mean, regardless of what happens, I think we are headed towards probably the most interesting and maybe most watched Army Navy game ever.
yeah,
At least in
I
our
I was
lifetime.
I was talking with friend of the show Matt about this, and this scenario potentially being like on the horizon. Do you think this moves the Army Navy game off of this week? Like
Man,
it, I because it almost feels like this should be like a week zero type of thing, or you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like it feels like with them being in the same conference, and then also the Army Navy game, it almost feels like there need to
Mm.
be changes to the concept that we know of the Army Navy game.
Man, you guys you and Matt together are nothing if not just outside the box thinkers when it comes to the questions that no one else is asking in terms of the sports area, the sports world, I should say. I think you definitely have the conversation. I think you kind of wait to see if this isn't just a fluke situation, or you leave them that week, but you kind of adjust the rules so that
Yeah,
potentially, so say maybe if there's a situation where Army and Navy are going to be in the championship game of the American, maybe you bump it so that that is the Army Navy game, just is the championship game rather than play twice. I don't know if the conference would necessarily go for that, but that would give Army Navy even more meaning. That's one solution to this issue if this suddenly becomes like a big problem. That, or you might be able to think of something simpler in which you still get that extra game. But I don't know.
well,
I think you have to have the conversation because who knew that this was going to happen for the American? Literally, like what isn't this the first year that they're in the American together? First or second?
maybe, yeah, yeah.
I honestly don't know. Don't hold me to that. Either way, it's still pretty early in their history in the American, and it's like you're having this issue pretty like almost immediately.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just something to think about. I mean, because to me,
Definitely.
I mean, I think it'd be a really cool thing if it's if the game is always on like the weekend of Veterans Day.
I see
Like
that. Like
that could
middle of
be
the
a
season.
thing. Yeah, like it would be right, it's always probably the second weekend of November then.
Yeah, yeah. I could see that, but the problem you run into there, they don't have as much attention paid to it. Yeah, part of the significance of that game is that it's by itself. But if we're in a world where that might be just a conference championship game anyway this year, and then the Army
Mhm.
Navy, it's like, well, is it for the sake of yeah, keeping that pomp and circumstance alive? I think it's worth it to also acknowledge that, but also say, hey, look, leave all of them in their games because they earned it. You know,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm just thinking because like how is that fair to them if like for example, it doesn't even matter the outcome, but it's like if they're both undefeated, then whoever wins the conference game gets the group of five bid into the playoff.
right?
They get one less week to prepare than their opponent.
Yes,
So that's just unfair to them as a team.
it is.
Like because they're having to prepare because they're having to play the same team again the next week. Like it just seems like absolutely ridiculous that like maybe if they meet the week before in the championship game, then the game's just canceled. like like I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, it does make. Well, one of the things I think that could be cool out of this American situation. I didn't mean to rag on this the whole time, but not rag on this, but go this deep into this. But we are going to get an on stadium location. That usually doesn't happen with this game. Usually
Mhm.
it's in a bigger stadium. So I think that's the kind of case. I think it only becomes unfair if we end up in a situation where a playoff spot is actually on the line. And right now we don't know if one really is. So it's hard to determine. So I think there's a lot of firsts that are going to come out of this season. And of course, one of them is that Army and Navy are both amazing. Who could have predicted this in a
Yeah.
scenario of, I mean, even if we were in the old playoff situation, if this was happening, it's like, oh, snap. Like, this is still kind of crazy. What do we do? But now it actually might have implications on the bigger playoff. Didn't have this in my bingo card. Really did not
Well,
have
it
this.
who knows? It may not. I mean, Navy plays Notre Dame tomorrow. So or today when you're listening to this on Saturday. So
Yeah,
uh might not be relevant anymore. But we'll see.
gotcha. I am going to shift and stay in college football and just let's see. I want to get this out of the way. Upset of the week goes to Georgia over Texas, essentially dismantling Texas. And honestly, in a situation I was kind of in and out of paying attention due to a bachelor party this past weekend, but we obviously paid attention to that game and all the games, and oh my goodness, it was. And here's the thing: I was surprised to see that score when it was like 20-0 Georgia. But then as the game unfolded and Texas never really could come back, I kind of said, look, this is exactly what we've been talking about. There's not enough oxygen in the room for everybody. You're going to get these losses. There's no, like, if anyone, again, if any of these teams ever actually run the table with the way that these conferences are now and the way the playoff is now, well, then yeah, they're the greatest team ever. I don't think that's
Mhm.
even disputable. The my point in saying that is I don't think it's ever going to happen. Never say never, but it's going to take a really, really, really talented team and some luck, quite frankly, to even pull that off. Texas has looked like technically the best team in the country most of this year, and then they lose to Georgia badly at home. And I'm supposed to sit here and think, okay, yeah, I guess Oregon's your number one now. Oh, Oregon looks like your team that could actually do it. Oregon could easily lose like any point. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
They were within like one stop away from losing to Ohio State. So I can't even sit here and think that on a technical level, talent wise, I still think Texas is probably pound for pound the best team in the country. And now they have their loss, and their one loss was to Georgia, who's still really good. Who it took an Alabama miracle for them to beat for Georgia to even lose. So we'll see. I think, and this is again happening after Georgia has their one loss. I just think that your one loss when it comes in the season is going to turn you into a buzzsaw potentially at the right time. So
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see if that happens with Georgia, and if they just kind of run the table here on out and um try and avenge some stuff that they've been dealing with. Yeah, I think that this game was mostly just like uh bully ball with like the actual like big time SEC players against a roster still mostly comprised of like Big 12 talent.
yeah,
So we'll see on that. My upset of the week actually also in the SEC goes to Tennessee, ending Alabama's season.
Rocky
Um,
Top.
yeah, I Alabama got their second loss at this point. That's got to be pretty much curtains for the Tide this year. But I mean, who knows? I mean, things could happen, but
I
uh,
pulled up the AP poll. Continue your thought.
but I know I said that it's interesting, you know, with all these things because it keeps teams in the conversation a lot longer. You know, because if they just get one loss, then they're still in the conversation. And that was the case with Alabama. Was they got their one loss and they were still relevant. They were still in the conversation, and then now they lose Tennessee, and it's yeah, it's done.
Well,
I think they're
and
probably done.
again, I hate to not give credit where it's due, but your first loss is to a team that's definitely not in the playoff. It's most more than likely Vanderbilt,
Hmm.
and then you lose to Tennessee. Those losses, depending on what those teams do, are going to get better or worse depending on what happens, obviously. But either way, regardless of Vanderbilt being number 25 in this week's poll, it's kind of like, well, I will say ends their season. Hard to say. I think it's going to be tough for them to make it into the top 12 now, especially with the way things are kind of settling. But we're at the end of October now. The cream tends to rise. I will say that kind of building on that, my performance of the week, because we talked about them last week, goes to the Indiana Hoosiers. They
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely demolished Nebraska in at Indiana, kind of very much showing okay. Like I think everybody was the eye opener. That was also my pseudo eye opener of the week. So much so that College Game Day is going to be there this morning slash today, Saturday, for the first time, and that's really really cool. It's one of they. I think the list now of major Power Five football programs that haven't had College Game Day come for the football is now down to like two or three, and ironically, one of them is Syracuse.
I
Still,
think they've been there before because I think they said that their first time on a Saturday. I think
oh,
they've
okay,
been
maybe in
there.
the so they've
I
been to
think they've been
Bloomington
there.
before.
Yeah, yeah. I think they've been there for some weekday game. I don't know for sure, but they kind of seem to
Okay,
specify that
might be
it's their
wrong on that one.
first game day Saturday there.
My bad.
But
Uh,
it will be awesome to see Corso back
oh,
back in
dude,
Bloomington.
I think that's all. I think that actually played a role as well. I mean, he's got.
Mhm.
I mean, there is a literal like mural of him in that stadium being carried off the field. I mean, he's the man. So it's going to be very awesome. I look forward. Heck, I can see them zooming in on him to start the show tomorrow. It's one of those things where it's like Lee Corso, yeah, and then like, can't you see it already?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you can, and then like he's all emotional because they're in Indiana, and it's going to be cool, and he's going to say something, nostalgic that you may or may not be able to understand. But we, nothing but love for Lee. But it'll be cool. He'll definitely have something prepped and ready. And usually he talks to Kirk about what he's going to say in his sequences. So, but yeah, I love Lee Corso. It's going to be awesome to see. But wouldn't happen without Kurt Signetti's squad here. I'm
Yeah.
saying, man. Indiana only jumping to 13 in the AP polls a little to me. But when I see who's above him, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I'd put him in the top 10 just yet.
Yeah, I mean, especially without any kind of like strength of schedule. I mean, they're, when you look at who they've beaten, it's like, okay, I mean, you're like record's great, but like, let's see you up against, a big powerhouse team.
Yes. And one of the things I'm trying to see
So,
here, I was literally just looking this up. When do the power, when does the first playoff ranking come out?
mhm,
And it lit quite literally, it's election day.
okay.
November 5th, it's that Tuesday
Mhm.
is the first one. So keep your eyes on that because that's when we actually these teams have like basically one more weekend to put their initial resume in to wherever they're going to land in the first playoff.
Yeah.
First ever one we're going to see in terms of a 12 team. So very strategically placed on November 5th, 2024 as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
placement of the month goes to the college football playoff. Go ahead. You can give another of the week.
Yeah. I have I have uh
That's a mischievous smile. Oh no.
I'm just trying to okay. I have brain of the week, and that goes to Tua Tagovailoa's brain
Oh my.
as he is set to return to starting for the Miami Dolphins on Sunday.
I don't know if brain of the week is really what you're going for there. Poor decision of the week, I guess. I don't know. I do. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that we talked about it at the time. It since his injury, um, I mean, he was asked if he was going to wear a Guardian cap, and he said no. Uh, I mean, I just feel bad. I mean, because it definitely seems like a situation to where there's legitimate cause for concern, and I don't know if he cares enough or if he's being. I don't know if the team cares enough, if he cares enough, but it definitely just feels like people outside of the building are legitimately concerned just for him as a person, and everybody involved is relatively dismissive about the potential like issues that could arise with that.
Right, and I will say that you can't live someone's life for them. That's the first thing that kind of comes to mind. It's like, look, everyone can tell a certain something to someone, but if that person isn't going to heed the advice, it's ultimately up to us individually to live our
Mhm.
own lives, right? And I don't know. I don't know. None of us know what it's like to be him. Maybe the damage really isn't as bad as it looks to us. I can tell you that this man is 26 years old. Even in NFL standards, he's still very much on the young side. I don't know what the rest of his career looks like, but it makes me think of when we were about, roughly 10 years ago. Do you remember that period of time when Sidney Crosby had to miss like significant time because of like two major concussions,
Hmm.
including one in there basically a whole season? He essentially didn't play hockey for like a calendar year. I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was a genuine fear in Pittsburgh at that time that his career was actually over, because I don't know. He's such a to himself, and hockey's such a non-boastful sport in terms of talking to the media that you just didn't know. But he was really considering it from the sound of things, as I recall. But he's been fine since, and he, knock on wood, has not had any major concussion problems. Tua hasn't really missed a significant time because of that. But at the end of the day, if they're following protocol, it's ultimately up to him to do what he wants and what's up. And the fact that he's not going to wear a Guardian cap, it, I'm kind of neither here nor there with that. Wearing the Guardian cap is whatever if you're going to continue playing football, you know?
Hmm.
So I don't know. I just hope he's okay long term. That's really all I can say about Tua. Uh, I hope the right people are telling him the right things and he's getting the right medical information. That's all I'm going to say.
Absolutely.
Speaking of medical information, the celebration of the week, I guess, goes to the Cleveland Browns fans, in the sense of, and I don't say that to sound callous. Just that was another source of story that I thought, okay, well, Casen's got to do this. On a serious note, of course, Deshaun Watson gets his Achilles injury. We're like a week removed from it now because we're recording this so late in the week, but still want to get your kind of 2 cents on it. Looking like what's his name? The acronym guy came in for the rest of the game.
Uh, Jameis. Well, DTR came in,
DTR. There we go.
and but he also got injured, and so Jameis is going to be starting on Sunday.
Swashbuckler. And I believe the Browns have also signed Bailey Zappi, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's the QB depth. In reality, they're very much in the situation they were a year ago. It's looking like he's going to, only this time it's pretty clear immediately when you saw the injury, like it's probably an Achilles. He's probably out for the year. Whereas Deshaun Watson's injury last year was kind of a surprise. I remember kind of getting the text and being like, oh, snap, he's gone for the year. Because remember, he was kind of week to week. And then it was like, I'm going to have
Well,
surgery. Oh, he's out for the year. And it was like, oh,
no,
okay.
it wasn't even that. It was
It was that.
the one last year. He he beat he kind of played well at the end of the Ravens game,
Yeah.
and people were like, okay, here's something.
Yeah.
And then the next day, he was like, my shoulder screwed up. I'm having surgery and I'm done for the year.
Oh,
It
that's right. It
it
was
wasn't
sudden. That's right.
it wasn't like I'm out next week. It was like he played the game, and then there weren't really any rumblings about him being injured.
That's right. I'm
And
sorry.
then
I
all
remember
of a
that now.
sudden, there might have been rumblings
I
like
thought there were
post
rumblings
game.
earlier in the season that like something might be up with his upper body or whatever, but nothing really.
I don't totally remember for sure, but I think maybe there was something to where I think we might have known that he got like kind of injured
Sure.
because he looked a little like he was acting a little funky towards the end of the game of like something hurt, but like nobody really indicated it was bad until the next day when it was just like, oh, he's done. And it was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, weird. But yeah, so he gets the Achilles, and I believe surgery was today.
Today and Friday.
And
Yeah.
I from my understanding, yeah, we're just gonna end up riding Jameis. So
Hey, as far as I know, the Browns have a chance now.
who Jameis looked good at the end of the game. He looked good. Came in, scored a touchdown, 2-point conversion.
Man, had this Brown saga extended all the way into Hard Knocks, it was going to be something. But now you're going to see Jameis,
Yeah,
the
I now
swashbuckler.
I'm sure the people at HBO are overjoyed that we're going to be getting tons of Jameis content for that show.
That or they're like annoyed that they were not getting the continued saga and drama that is the
Well,
Browns.
I don't think that would have been good for viewing because it would
That's
have been
probably true.
like the show would have just been fans calling
Mm-hmm.
on this guy, to be removed from the city, and like I don't think the franchise would have like put much content in the show
Mm-hmm.
because like that isn't like a like content for a show. It's just a bunch of
Right.
like internal drama.
I'm going to go ahead and just kind of address this as well. I'm not trying to stir up controversy. I will say the Browns fans are well within their rights to be happy about it. I'm sorry. Like it's one of those things where it's like I personally wouldn't cheer anyone getting, injured in that sense, but for the context of Browns fans and what the circumstances are with this particular person and this ownership and the way that it was pushed on the fans, I don't need to get into it. I don't think that the fans should take as much heat as they did personally. And if you're his teammate, you got to step up for him. Like I 100% get all that as well. Like I understand where everyone was coming from. I just wanted to make sure I said that as a non-Browns fan, Casen.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know definitely the context of the situation of like, um, the fans. I mean, it for me, it makes the team watchable again.
Mm.
And look, I under normal circumstances, you don't want to see that. Like you don't
No,
like there's it's obviously distasteful to be cheering, when anybody on the opposing team gets injured
yeah,
or whatever. But I will say this is a particular individual who is probably most hated in his own city because I mean the city, like half of the city can't even support their own team.
I wouldn't even necessarily say even just within his own city, Casen. He's a pretty disliked player, probably across the NFL.
Well, I'm saying especially in his own city because
Gotcha. Yep.
it makes the people in the city hate their own franchise,
Right.
and so
Yeah.
he's at public enemy number one in the league. Like that's just the fact. And so I will say, and I will agree and concur that if there's anybody in the league that you could cheer, it's him.
Mm-hmm.
So it is what it is. I
He's
mean, it is what
also
it
he's
is.
also not the
But
only player you could cheer if this happened to him. That being said, we're moving on. What's your next of the week, if you have one?
I guess keeping on topic here, I will have lawsuit of the week. So it was announced and official. I don't that the Browns intend to move out of
Ah,
the city of
yes.
Cleveland,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked about it when the plans kind of came out
Yep.
or when the proposal came out. But the Browns organization gave their notice to the city of Cleveland that they will be moving at the end of their lease in 2028. I think it's 2028. And they will be building or proceeding with the plans to build a dome in Brook Park.
Yeah.
Um, I mean it is what it is. I mean we know we've addressed the pros and cons at the time, but I mean it will be definitely interesting and a good opportunity for the region.
So, like shovels in the ground, like wheels to the pavement, like it is for sure happening.
Well, so this is the thing. So they
Okay.
gave their notice to the city. The city countered with uh a bit of a negative reaction, and they indicated that
Just a bit.
they were going to stop this potential move, citing the Modell law
Yeah.
that was that was passed after Modell moved the Browns to Baltimore. Um, and so the Browns they cited that. So then the Browns said, "Well, we think this is not even an option." So the Browns immediately filed suit against the city, basically saying, "You want to sue us for this, so we're going to bring you into court right now and
Yeah.
actually sue you so that we can get clarification on if this is even a thing." Because the spirit of the Modell law is not exactly no, you cannot move 15 minutes down the road to build your dome. Like the law has been used one time, and it has successfully been used one time, and that was to prevent the Columbus Crew from leaving to move to Austin,
Shout out the
in which
crew. Yes.
the Crew were then actually acquired by none other than Browns owner Jimmy and Dee Haslam.
Yeah, you're making
So
actually a very good point in court for like, hey, hang on, come on. I stepped in to like help this situation. I'm not moving him out of Cleveland.
Exactly. Is
I'm
that
not.
if there's anybody who can justifiably say I respect this law and I understand the meaning of it, it's the guy who actually was the only person to save the
I
team.
will say, and I don't want to speak for all Northeast Ohioans, but I can tell you that like the folks in my circle for Cleveland fans are generally like, yeah, we get it. Like I think the
Yeah,
first
I
time you
mean,
roll into that stadium, I think the first time you, Casen, go to that new stadium, you're gonna be like, yeah, this was worth it. And you're not like stuck like as badly stuck in traffic on the lake. You're
oh
not
my
having to
god,
do all
it's a
yeah,
nightmare. I
all
don't
of the
even live
all of
there,
the
and it's a nightmare.
all of the things that like are a problem now are not going to be anymore. Bears, you're up next. Come on, Chicago. Let it happen.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sucks, but like that's what everybody is doing. I mean,
Yeah.
it, it's rare, and you would have had to uh have some better planning options in order for it to be able to be an option downtown.
Right.
Like something like a Ford Field is rare, and even with that, traffic is still kind of a nightmare there.
I mean, at
But
some point as sports fans, you need to kind of like be an adult and just kind of say, look, this is the direction the this is the direction the business is going, and ultimately for what you're going to grandstand in your old stadium and for what? For the sake of having a worse stadium in a worse location when it's not even really leaving the metropolitan area. Like I just
yeah,
I feel the same way about this as to why Wrigley Field and Fenway are still used. Like okay, or we could just build brand new ballparks that aren't terrible. Oh no, you lose the nostalgia. Oh, like time capsules of the game. Like okay, yeah, or at some point we can build new stadiums because that's what's better for our organization and fans. But whatever. I mean, I'm just maybe it's just the person in the industry in me that just kind of looks at it and thinks, yeah, that makes the perfect sense in the world, and yes, I would welcome this in Pittsburgh. I would. When it's time to happen, because I no doubt think in my lifetime that conversation is going to happen there too. So
mm-hmm.
anyway, I'm trying to think of another of the week here, Casen. Uh, but I was thinking about this. It's an of the week that I meant to bring up last week. It's a little bit of a somber of the week, but it is worth a conversation. And being that the World Series will be starting Friday evening and continuing into Saturday, I believe. I do have a little bit of a baseball of the week. Uh, how do I put this? Eviction of the week goes to the Tampa Bay Rays. And that is
Yeah,
because,
yeah,
because it's a little bit of a older story now, but Hurricane Milton unfortunately did irreparable, completely damaged and destroyed, quite frankly, the roof of Tropicana Field, effectively putting them out of that stadium for probably the entire upcoming season, 2025. I
yeah,
mean, they've already
yeah.
done the assessment of, yeah, we can't play here. The roof is not going to be ready. And not to mention, when something like that happens, literally they have to check the structural integrity of the ballpark. And I think if you're the Rays at this point, if you're that organization, you genuinely do an assessment of, okay, is it worth like putting it into practice here of potentially just building a new ballpark? I think I like that's an old enough venue to where you should probably start having that conversation.
Well, it's a very unique situation with the Rays because they've been having that conversation for years.
Yeah.
Like, were they not about to move to Montreal like 5 years ago?
Not 5 years ago, but they've been testing that market around in different places. They I don't necessarily think that MLB, for as good an organization as the Rays really are, like at their core in terms of like on field success, I don't think Major League Baseball sees their long term future in Tampa. And I think that this could be the starting gun to a bigger conversation about do we move the Rays? That's immediately why everyone I think took to the internet and said, "Hey, there's a park that you can play in Oakland." And I was one of those people who said, "Look, I wouldn't want the Rays to play there. That needs replaced too. Trust me." But I
Yeah.
guess they're looking at a minor league situation as well. They're already kind of looking at that. Which, dude, we could realistically for the next couple of years potentially have two Major League Baseball clubs on opposite sides of the country playing in minor league stadiums, which is kind of wild.
Yeah.
Really. I mean,
Yeah, it would definitely be something weird for the game. Yeah, I don't know.
but we'll see what happens. But I did want to acknowledge that just because you know, thankfully Milton wasn't anywhere near what Helene was, but that was one of the casualties. Was the just seeing the Tropicana field. It honestly gave me kind of eerie nostalgia to when the Superdome looked like that in 2005. So we'll see what happens with the Rays, but
Yeah, no, I mean, I will say it just something to be addressed is that they definitely it was concerning because they were going to use Tropicana Field as like a venue of as like a uh
like a
as
shelter. Yeah.
as a shelter.
They
They had a
actually
they
were
had
using it. I believe like they were
they were all prepared to. They had beds and stuff set up, and then I think at the last minute when they realized that it was going to hit the place, they canceled those ideas and moved them somewhere else.
well, it's also got one of those roofs that's kind of the older dome setup. Casen, you may or may not remember this. Do you remember the old Metrodome when the snow punctured the
Yeah,
roof and
I
came
do.
in?
Yeah,
Yeah, the old dome
Hubert
setup like
Humphrey.
the RCA dome. Yes, 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 yes. That old setup how domes used to be, where they had essentially that inflatable roof.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's kind of the roof that they had there. It almost looked like sort of the Pontiac Silverdome when it was
Hmm.
abandoned, when the roof had just been completely neglected and it was essentially an outdoor stadium now. Um, it looked like that, the images of it, which made me think, huh, it makes you wonder if they rebuilt the roof, or they just try to rebuild Tropicana the best they can. They could put a storm sturdier roof or even a retractable something up there. Um, Whatever they
If it's
decide to do.
yeah, I don't.
Yeah. Who
I'm
knows
not
if
an
that part,
engineer. I don't know what's
right,
possible. I don't know.
right.
Yeah, I don't know. But definitely, I think that for the franchise, they'll be looking into
All
the future,
options.
the yeah, all options as far as the future of that facility goes.
Yeah,
Because
I think
there is a
all options need
concern.
to be on the table.
I mean, there is a concern over like, well, is there hidden structural damage that we can't see? So yeah, I mean, you want to be as safe as possible with
Yeah,
the
you
venue.
can't just rebuild the roof and play baseball this year. No way. Like it doesn't work that way, thankfully. That's the last real of the week I have. What you got?
Yeah, I think that was all I had as well.
Cool, cool, cool. We can shift into some football. We kind of went through the bigger stories of the week, and we can kind of do a combination here. I think I will say, moving along here, I do want to revisit the Indiana conversation in Penn State, because
Mhm.
Penn State sits at 3, Oregon sits at 1. I wanted to pull this up here. Georgia's at 2. Texas only falls to 5. That's very fair to me. I think that's fine. Ohio State sitting at 4. You have several huge games that are still on the horizon here. I've been talking to some friends in my circle and thinking, Penn State has to play with Wisconsin, then they have to play Ohio State. Then they're kind of in the clear. And I've said to some people, even if you lose to Ohio State, Penn State people, Penn State's got to be a lock for a playoff spot. I mean, barring you win out. I mean, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I do think you have to have a realistic conversation now of, oh my goodness, here come the Hoosiers.
No, yeah. I
We
mean,
started it
that's
last week. Now I'm
yeah.
like, okay, they're for real. I think they are for real, for real.
I mean that's the real question of uh who's going to get in if Indiana and Penn State are both 11-1 and their only losses to Ohio State.
That is your
I mean,
question.
but either I mean Ohio State could lose to either one of them. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I mean it's certainly plausible.
Oh man, it would be a wild if Ohio State lost to both. I think that would solidify Ryan Day's fate. Maybe not. Maybe
Look,
not. Maybe not.
look, all I'm gonna say is if I'm Ryan Day, I don't want to have a complete bomb of a season
Yeah.
the year Michigan completely like falls apart,
Right.
and in which there's a certain somebody on staff just up 71 and is living in Cleveland right now. Uh that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Um in that.
Hang on. I had to check something. Did you just insinuate Stefanski?
No, no, no,
Oh, okay.
no. I'm insinuating somebody else who's on staff there.
Who?
Somebody who has ties to the program.
Who? Just say who it
Somebody,
is.
Mike Vrabel.
Oh, I forgot he's there. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
Mike Vrabel is
That
an
foot,
assistant
the
for the
footballest of
Browns.
all football guys, arguably.
Yeah, yeah. All I'm saying
Living, I should say.
is
Rest in peace, Mike Leach.
yeah. All
Facts.
I'm saying is if
Facts.
you're Ryan Day, you don't want to be giving the biggest like the biggest excuse for everybody to fire you when your
Yeah.
replacement is literally chomping at the bit to come there.
Well,
Like
it's
he was
well,
at I think a volleyball game a couple weeks ago. So he's been in Columbus recently.
again, barring Variable doesn't want to stay in the NFL, which is a question mark. I mean, because the college ranks versus. I think Vrabel's more of an NFL guy,
There
but
was talk about that, but you would think that if there's any job he would take,
yeah,
that would be the one.
I mean,
That
and
would be the
obviously
one.
when it comes to when it comes to like college football jobs, that's one of your blue chips, right? Like
And
obviously,
like to a certain extent, like if you're like, oh, I only want to coach NFL, that's basically the NFL at this point. Like
oh
you're gonna
yeah,
you're gonna
NFL factory dog.
yeah. I mean, like you're talking about player acquisition, signing players. Like this is basically the NFL at this point,
Absolutely.
at a program of that level.
I want to visit something that took place last night because last night, as in
Yeah.
it's Friday. We are watching. I think based on your reaction, I think where I'm kind of going with this. The Pitt Panthers are 7-0 for like the first time since 1982. Absolutely destroyed my Syracuse Orange on Thursday night this week. Kind of saw it coming. Rough game from McCord. He threw 3 pick sixes in the first half. Dude, that's quite literally when you're playing college football 25 on Heisman mode and you have even one
Yeah.
errant pass. It literally looked like that. I was like,
I've done that several times. Several times.
and I have too. Trust me, I have. But it's like, oh, okay, so we're just gonna lose by 1 million. That's fine. My point in saying that is they do have. There it is. Pittsburgh has, for the look of things, SMU next, Virginia, Clemson, Louisville, Boston College. Clemson and Pitt now becomes quite an interesting game because who's to say the better team in the ACC is this year? Because they I forget his name, but Pitt has their new offensive coordinator. They're like a fast-paced offense now. They never had this. Narduzzi's pretty much just let the dude run the offense, and they're running it. That guy was at Western Carolina University the last few
Mhm.
years, and they had one of the better offenses in the SoCon. Really cool, but Pitt is just like a wagon right now. And as someone who is a fan of one of their rival teams and that kind of followed that on Thursday, oh geez, but that was another team I just kind of wanted to give a little bit of shout out.
No, I mean absolutely, and I mean that brings me a really good point because now, who knows how good they are, like really against other teams in other conferences, but
Yeah,
the ACC is now a dogfight because I mean, like you look at the top of this conference between programs that are 6-1 or 7-0, Clemson, Miami,
Miami still. Yeah,
SMU, and Duke. I mean, Duke is unranked, but they're 6-1
yeah.
as well. So they're not an easy out by no means at this point. So I mean that's 5 really good programs, and any one of them have a chance to win the conference. So
With
who
Clemson,
knows?
with Clemson and Miami, I almost look at Pitt as sort of the Indiana of the ACC in the sense of quietly really amazing. They're home wrecking, and the teams that they're beating, they're destroying. It's like
Yeah.
not even. So it's like, how good are they? And eventually you have to do the put up or shut up games. The U looks to very much be back this year, at least this year. Cam Ward and them are playing really well. They're doing well. Louisville put up a lot of points against them, but they still were able to outlast them in what was pretty much a track meet. I did kind of follow that game this past week. Clemson, Miami, Pitt, though, I think that is a genuine toss up. SMU's kind of just looming there. They're kind of just
I
saying,
mean,
hey, we
that
belong.
Clemson Pitt game could be huge, but Pitt's going to have to get through SMU first. because they're
Oh
gonna
yeah.
Pitt's gonna have to go to Dallas
Oh yeah.
and beat SMU,
The
which
Mustangs.
that game could be very fun.
The
I
Stangs,
mean,
man.
I will say,
They're saying, let's bring Pony XS back now that we can pay our players.
I think that over under should be like 75 because it's just like that's just gonna be that has to be a shootout in my
Oh,
head.
dude, absolutely. Yep. Bunch of Panthers and a bunch of Mustangs gonna run on each other big time. Yeah. So I just wanted to throw them out there.
Yeah,
Anything else
that should be really fun.
jump out at you?
Yeah. So also, yeah, like I said, Notre Dame Navy, that should be kind of a fun matchup. We'll get to see sort of the comparison there.
Let's go Navy.
Oregon. You know,
Oregon has Illinois coming
Oregon
in.
has Illinois. This feels to me like a potential like upset alert situation. Like
100%.
We've seen teams going west because Illinois has to go out to Oregon. So we've seen the effects of that. But Illinois is good. I mean, they're just
good.
beat Michigan. They're a tough, like knock you in the teeth type of team, and that is not Oregon. Like
No.
Oregon is kind of a similar to Ohio State with a lot of finesse type of stuff. And so it's very intriguing to see how they will match up. I don't know, but I'm just saying it feels like a potential thing where Oregon could be, maybe a little sleepy, coming off, a big blowout win against Purdue. They could maybe not be prepared because it's their last ranked matchup of the season.
It is, at least for now. I will say I was looking at Illinois' schedule. They've been quietly doing really well. Their one loss was a 21-7 loss at Penn State, which, respectable showing. It's kind of whatever. They beat Purdue in an absolute shootout. Then they beat Michigan by the same margin of points that Penn State beat them, 21-7, but basically made it look easy at home. And it's not one of those things where they had to expend so much energy to beat Michigan. They're not going to have enough to beat Oregon. No, I think Michigan's just bad, and Illinois just was the better team. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm at. It's a little bit of a, your eyebrows raise a little bit.
Yeah. Very, very curious on that.
Sorry, technical difficulty. Had to. So that's definitely one to keep your eye on. Shout out Illinois. I am waiting. It would be cool to see who's the mid-tier, like traditional Big Ten team who can go out west and get like a knockout punch. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Other than just Penn State beating USC, I still think we're due for something like that happening. And who knows? Maybe Washington can beat Indiana tomorrow. I don't tomorrow, Saturday. I hope that doesn't happen, but hard to say. But don't sleep on Wisconsin, Penn State. Wisconsin's a little pesky, and they're at home against Penn State. That could be something that goes, and that is definitely a loss that could derail Penn State a little bit. What's up?
I will. So, if I may, I want to bring up sort of I talked about the ACC, but this is a buzzsaw of like a conference in the SEC right now. There are. Do you know how many teams in the SEC are ranked right now?
It's not right in front of me, but just go ahead.
It's 9. They have 9 ranked teams right now.
Jeez.
And as of now, Texas is ranked 6th in the SEC. So Texas plays Vanderbilt in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
If Vanderbilt beats Texas, they will both be 6-2, and Vanderbilt will jump them in the SEC rankings.
They sure will.
And so, I mean, Texas could go from number 1 to out of the playoffs in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Like, I'm just saying, this is the kind of disaster that like only Sark could engineer. Like, like this feels. Like, if this happens, this would be the most Sark ending to the season I've ever seen.
This feels like impending doom. It really does. Now that you point that out, yeah, that actually, this could be the biggest disaster in the history of like.
Like, Texas is back, baby. And then, okay, we lost to
Oh,
Georgia.
oh,
Okay, that's fine. That's
oh,
fine.
you're
That's
back,
fine. That's
all right.
fine.
Yeah, you're back to the bottom, right where we.
Right where we left you.
We are so back. We never left. We are so back. Well, you're the Texas that we thought was going to struggle in the SEC along with Oklahoma. Oh boy, oh boy. If you're a Texas fan, do not make fun of any Oklahoma fans right now, because this could easily be you here very soon. This is why you need, well, that's funny, because like I saw Arch like trending again online. It's like you're just kind of waiting for Arch to come in and just take off. And it's like, no, it just never really happened. He's still a young quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, if
Yeah, I mean, which there was a lot of discourse about like why he put him in it, like because Sarkisian pulled Quinn, put Arch in, and then later swapped Quinn back in.
right.
And I think that basically what that really was it was Sarkisian trying to prove a point, I think, to the fans, because the fans were calling for Arch. And I think what he did was actually good for Quinn, because it showed it's not Quinn. It's like it's just the matchup against Georgia. Like Quinn's struggling, Arch is struggling. Like anybody that was out there would be struggling.
Quarterback's not going to magically fix everything. No.
Yeah. So I think that was good. That you don't love to see quarterbacks get pulled like that.
No.
But sometimes it can maybe just give them a break to sort of refocus.
My counter to what you just said is that's a very huge risk to play with Quinn's confidence. But like,
it is
massive.
It is definitely. But
this is Sark we're talking about, so so we'll see.
But with that being said, there's a game for sole possession of first place in the SEC this weekend, and that is LSU Texas A&M.
Agreed. Yep. That is it.
Because those are the two last undefeated teams in the SEC, and one of them has to win. So whoever wins that game will be the only undefeated team in the SEC.
Dude, Brian Kelly from downtown. I'm telling you.
If we go through this entire exercise to end up with like LSU as the #1 team in the SEC, like what?
It took something like this. It took that one loss to USC, and then no one paying attention ever again, and LSU just rolls their way to the SEC championship.
It's like Georgia,
hold that Tiger.
Nope. Texas, nope. Bama, nope.
Nope.
Tennessee, nope.
Nope. Vandy,
Texas
nope.
A&M, nope. Ole Miss, nope.
LSU, Ole Miss, definitely nope.
Yeah, definitely nope.
From downtown, I'm telling you, keep your eyes on that, because oh my goodness. For the record, LSU can win out. LSU plays Texas A&M, Alabama, Florida, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma. All winnable games.
Yeah. So, I mean, if they get past A&M, like their only kind of challenge is probably Alabama, but like at that point the team will give up. So
right, especially if they're looking at that.
I do at least want to make a point about this. I don't know how much of that game you watched, but like that the Alabama-Tennessee game.
Oh yeah, I followed it. I watched a decent amount.
Real quick, Alabama had 15 penalties for 115 yards.
They're not.
I mean, they are. This is not Saban's program.
This is not a Saban coach team.
I mean,
it was never going to be. It was never going to be. I don't think it's fair to completely destroy DeBoer on this one season. That's where I think you and I differ a little bit. It's funny to like text each other back and forth and be like, "Oh, DeBoer, blah, blah, blah." It's like, yeah, but no one was going to be Saban. No one, like nobody.
I'm not saying he needs to be Saban, but what I'm saying is, what is he doing that dudes who played for Saban for 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, completely forget everything that Saban taught them and ingrained in them? Like you had these Bama dudes showing up with the cigars to the Tennessee game, ready to be lighting it up. Like
the discipline just changes because they know it's not Saban anymore. It's like having a substitute teacher, except it's not a substitute. That's your coach.
Exactly.
It's a mental thing.
Exactly. And that is not what you want to see if you are a Roll Tide booster. Like
No.
you do not want to be seeing, oh, this guy that we just hired is like completely letting everybody off the hook for all of this stuff.
Again, no one is the disciplinarian that Saban is. I think this would be happening no matter who it was.
Oh, 100%. I agree
Right.
with you with there in that I don't think it's entirely on DeBoer. Just I think there's a lot of it that's just he's not Saban. But I do think there are things he could be doing differently
Sure.
to
And
not completely lose everything that Saban put into the program.
right. And let's see how Alabama closes the year out. Let's see how they close it out, because if he can salvage this and everything, I think that's your best case scenario in his kind of impossible shoes to fill situation.
I mean, because in my mind,
If he ends up getting,
if
yeah,
I was DeBoer, I would immediately call up Nick Saban after that game against Tennessee and say, "Can you come talk to the guys tomorrow?" Like,
mm, I wouldn't do
I mean,
that, but yeah,
I'm just saying,
right. I get the point you're making, but in a literal sense, no, you don't do that because it's your team.
you're right, yeah,
It takes the disciplinary factor completely out. It could make things worse because it's like we respect you even less. You can't do that. You gotta do this. I don't know. So I don't know about that in a literal sense, but I get the sense. I get your point. I get your point. Um, gotcha. So any other college football takes? I don't have a whole lot to say about the NFL as we kind of
uh the only thing I'll say though is
yeah.
if you remember, I pointed out an upset watch game last week. Do you remember what that game was?
Off the top of my head, I do not.
That game was Texas A&M Mississippi State.
You did. That's right.
That was a 10-point game.
What's 10 point game?
It was a 10-point game. I mean, I not gonna, you know,
Toot your own horn. You should. You should
toot
toot.
my own horn that
Yeah, you
much,
should. Yeah,
but I mean, it was relatively close, for what I was saying.
absolutely. The last acknowledgement I want to say for college football before we move on is Harold Fannin Jr., Bowling Green, is officially this week your top rated tight end in college football 25, and well deserved because he's might be your best tight end in the country. Like in a technical position
Absolutely,
of how to actually play the actual position of tight end, you can't tell me that there's a better tight end in the United States of America in a college football program than at Bowling Green. Harold Fannin
absolutely.
Jr. Period. That's all I wanted to say. Got to acknowledge that, especially as Battle of the 75 happens Saturday. So, one of the Matt classics, which I'm learning about quite a bit, a lot outside of just the traditional echo
Mhm.
chamber of just one school now. That being said, we can transition to just a couple of NFL stories we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
I will say Steeler fan, Russ got it done, and the Steelers' offense looked a lot better against the Jets. Now, against it is the Jets, but it is kind of funny when like your team's storylines collide with another team who's a bit of a circus is uh, storylines at the same time, and Steelers come out and Russ looks good and he cooks quite literally, and the Steelers basically blow the Jets out. I was like, all right, sweet, this is awesome, and it's funny because it's the Jets.
What you're telling me that trading for Devontae Adams didn't magically fix all of their issues?
It sure didn't, Casen. I am telling you that. I am telling you that now. Uh, oh man,
I think they're just one Packers receiver away from getting it done though. I think they just need
yeah,
one more Packers receiver.
just get Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, call up Randall Cobb. What's Randall Cobb doing?
Randall Cobb, yes, absolutely. Man, I that was really one of the bigger things. I didn't put that in of the weeks because I figured I'll save it for the little NFL segment we have here. Prior to kind of going into the last segment, Chiefs remain undefeated. They look like technically terrible but amazing. I don't know what to say other than the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl again.
Yeah, I mean
They have the power of Swift.
a Chiefs Lions Super Bowl could be fun.
Yeah,
But yeah, I will say, uh, they're just winning games in weird ways now. Like we've seen this between last year and this year, where the offense isn't like as explosive as they were previously, but they're able to just kind of get wins however they need to get them.
You know what? You know what this kind of reminds me of, and I'm dead serious, just because of something that someone sent me this week. Not anyone we know, but someone said to me something this week that made me think. The Chiefs are kind of entering that place where they're so good that they can almost go a stretch without even caring and probably still win the Super Bowl. Like, do
Mhm.
you remember when LeBron and the Heat went on that like 28 game win streak, like almost 30 game win streak, like his second year there or whatever? Second or third year there. I think they were back to back. They were going for back to back defending championships or whatever, and they literally did a Harlem Shake video in the middle of just the season. And
Yeah.
they weren't skirting
When they were
practices
like
or
doing
anything.
like bottle flips on the
Yeah, they
sideline.
were doing like
Yeah.
I was literally like, this team's so good that they're bored.
Yeah.
Legitimately, this team's so good, and they know they're just gonna win and probably win the title. And I think they did that year. It was either they won it or it was. I actually take it back. I think the Spurs won it that year. I think that ended up
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
storyline. That season was also the year of the Spurs when it was them and the two of them. Either way, they had just won the title, and it's like, oh, we're gonna win another one. Either way, like no one can beat us. I'm not saying that the Chiefs are giving off that energy because it's a different sport, different circumstances, but the Chiefs can almost act that way. It's kind of how I feel like we can go out there and do almost anything and just somehow win. Heck, even if we lose a couple of games, doesn't matter. We're gonna go to the playoffs and destroy everybody and beat the
Mhm.
Bills in a devastating way again, so that Casen can laugh at them, and me too, kind of. But does it not feel that way? I mean, I'm over here quietly thinking, oh, this thing with my team, this thing with my team. I look up, oh, the Chiefs are still like 7-0, so it's like whatever.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, it's definitely at a situation to where the biggest opponent that they're going to have to play any given week is
Is
themselves. Like
themselves.
they're yeah.
It's creepy,
So
man.
they're gonna have to they're gonna have to stay on top of getting over their own complacency and and actually staying focused because I mean it is like that's why it is so incredibly hard to threepeat because at
Yeah.
a certain point everybody just gets bored and you're like you're just kind of like what are we doing here?
Well, it's not even just boredom, but just there's so many things that have to go right for even one championship to happen.
Yeah.
And 3 years is such a long time. That's why I'm on record on this show, and I'll say it again: three-peats just don't happen. Three-peats just do not happen in sports, which is why, and there's a reason why it's never happened in the NFL. If I'm saying if that happens, you could almost already go say, yeah, this is the best dynasty ever, because no one's winning three in a row again.
Oh, 100%.
I mean,
I
if they
think
win three in a row this year, I'm like, okay, well, I like they're already more impressive than the Patriots dynasty. Like, I'm sorry, like they are
I totally. I think that I mean on record, I mean Andy Reid would be the greatest coach of all time. I
goaded
mean the greatest offensive mind ever. Like four Super Bowls. Like what
in
would that be?
what 5 years?
Six appear four Super Bowls, or seven appearances, and he managed to coach a three-peat of like how do you even yeah
Yeah, it's sort of like when you think back in hindsight, the fact that the Fours made it to four straight Super Bowls is insane.
yeah
Like that essentially was a dynasty. They just never got the championship. I often say that. Like that was essentially their dynasty. They just could never actually get the title. But no one's going to four straight again. That's insane to me. That actually.
yeah
I think my mic cut out.
it's
But yeah, it's
yo
insane
yeah
to me
yeah
that happened. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely like the Bills, even without a championship, was a dynasty unfulfilled
There's a
for
reason
sure.
all those guys and coaches and people are all in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I mean,
all of them.
it's the same thing with like LeBron and like going to like
Oh
10
yeah,
straight finals. It's like, what are we doing?
yeah. I mean, so there's that. The Chiefs do have the Bills, the Buccaneers, the Browns on the schedule still, and the Steelers late in the year. Oh yeah, that's gonna ruin my Christmas. That's right. That's not actually, but yeah, Steelers home game against the Chiefs on in like week whatever. That's second to last game of the season. Anyway, that's what I got for the NFL. Any glaring things you want to talk about?
Uh, yeah, I mean, the only thing I want to do address is that the Cowboys suck. So that's
Cowboys are
fun.
bad. We did plenty of bashing on them though last week. So
Um, yeah, I don't. I'm just trying to see of like what big matchups. I mean, I'm not really seeing a ton of like marquee matchups. I think honestly probably one of the bigger ones is Bears Commanders.
yeah,
Um, the Commanders are I think
that's the
second are
PMT
second
bowl.
in the NFC right now.
Yeah.
And this is going to be it's Caleb up against Jaden, so it's definitely going to be a really interesting matchup to see
Shout out
how
another
the two
podcast.
rookies.
It's the PMT bowl.
Yeah,
Literally between like you got Big Cat who's the Bears fan and you got uh
PFT.
PFT who's the Commanders fan. So that's gonna be interesting. Both having success. So the one last thing is I do want to point out is look for the trade. The trade deadline's coming up, isn't it? I did want to kind of
Yeah,
put that into perspective.
I believe it's next week.
Yes, and someone threw out a trade that I thought to myself, "Oh man, that would be crazy." Um, but essentially, trade deadline NFL.
It is, I think, election day.
Okay, so there you go. Another thing that day marks. What the reason I'm pointing out is someone said that the Vikings should like trade for Matthew Stafford, and I was like, dude, I was like, man, that would be something. I do think because of when it is, we will probably see still some big names get traded. I still think that's very possible. We've seen it the last several years. Those moves
Yeah.
do happen. So I'm not saying that one's going to happen, but
Yeah, I mean, I think we're less likely uh to see that trade, mostly because the Rams have won two in a row. They're 3-4, so they're not totally like in the dumpster yet. Um, but if they were like if the Rams were sitting at like a 2-5 or something, and the season was kind of over, um, maybe definitely that could be a potential option for like a rebuild.
I've seen people also saying if the Rams are selling, send Cooper Cup to Pittsburgh. Yes, that would be lit.
I have seen that. I have seen that. Yeah.
That would be cool. But anyway, um, keep your eyes open because I think between now and our next show, there's going to be some significant NFL trades. Honestly,
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be, a fire sale on the teams that are kind of giving up.
yeah, absolutely,
So,
because that actually happens now.
yeah.
That being said, let's close it out with some Marvel discussion, Casen. It's been a minute since we have. It's been several weeks. It's been all this stuff, but we are kind of at the height of spooky season now. Literally next week is Halloween. I don't know if
Mhm.
our next show is gonna happen before or after Halloween, but we're right on it, which means that we're close to the end of Agatha All Along. But I am 5 episodes in, so spoiler warning if you're not there in the show. We're just gonna kind of talk about where we're at in the show up to now with the first five. I know it's been a minute, been a little bit, but I mean, it's how far I am, Jason, and I promise that I'll be all caught up by the time we talk again. But
Yeah. Mhm.
I will say, you have I'm you get to the third episode in. We talked about it, several shows ago. Fourth episode in is the next trial, of course, which you have the situation. It's the next trial, which is very much like the first one. Spooky, scary. They need to find out what's going on, but this one really seems to be tied to trauma, tied to one of their trauma. It seems like, whereas the first episode of the trials, the third episode was sort of like, hey, this is what it's trauma for everyone. This seemed to be focusing in quite a bit. Um, and I enjoyed it. I really have liked it. I'm very much kind of this little bit of this kind of freak of the week kind of thing. And I was kind of thinking, is this going to be what it is the entire time? Sort of like you said, is it going to be just a trial per week and we learn more and more and more? Well, sort of up to the end of five. But you talk about that episode first because I want to kind of talk about how that transitions into the fifth one, kind of capping the first half.
Yeah, yeah, episode 4. Yeah, episode 4, I thought was an interesting concept. Um, I I'm trying to remember the note. This was the one with the recording studio, right?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah. So the very interesting dynamic because it's focused uh on the song, the Witches Road song itself.
Yes.
And I thought that was kind of a cool plot device because that's been used narratively throughout. Um, and then obviously we see Rio come back, and there's a lot of drama with that and airing out of some Agatha dirty laundry.
Yeah, it seems like
It
there's a story there. There's a history there.
there
A
yeah.
romantic history there as well. Not what I was expecting either. It's definitely like a love-hate thing.
There's definitely some kind of situation going on with that. Um,
And you have more knowledge even because you're like actually like caught up. So
yeah, I am caught up to 7, which just came out this week. So, the yeah, we'll address that after the finale. But
cool.
um,
Well, even maybe beforehand. Like I said, let's see what happens. But it looks like the finale. I think the finale is Halloween, right?
the finale is next week. Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. So that being the case, I will say the dynamic between Catherine Hahn and Aubrey Plaza is fantastic. Yeah, I expected nothing less, but it's really cool to see the acting chops on everybody involved here, even those that are not as not as well known. By the way, the name of that episode 4 is "If I Can't Reach You, Let My Song Teach You." It's kind of cool that the limericks are what the names
Mhm.
of the episodes are. Episode 5, Darkest Hour, Wake Thy Power. So yeah, it's kind of teased at the end of the previous episode, episode 4, that the way you break a sigil, which is on the teen, it's established that this kid can't talk.
Mhm.
He's been spelled somehow. He's been cursed sigil. You know, there's a spell on him. That you can't break it. It has to be broken. You have to do it. And it has to be in some sort of power moment, right? And we haven't that was definitely the most like horror movie-esque episode so far. I think they have the kind of sleepover type thing. And then of course you have Agatha's mom being the spirit who's possessing people in and out. Definitely just the most in your face, kind of almost eye rolling horror movie imagery in this episode. It's like, okay, this feels plucked straight out of like an 80s ghost movie. You know what I mean? Like this is
Well,
go ahead.
what I will say is, I believe that like
Not in
you're
a negative
seeing
way.
yeah, I will just say I believe you're seeing sort of the dynamic of like each trial is like focusing on one of the witches in the coven
Correct.
as like the person to solve it. Like the first one was the potion, so they needed uh Jen
Yeah, it
to
was Jen.
make up the potion, and the second one was
Was
the song
Alice,
was
right?
Alice's song, yeah, and then this one's on Agatha.
Yeah.
Um, and so we're seeing all that stuff, and yeah, definitely we're seeing we saw it kind of last episode, and then this one in big time is you're seeing sort of everybody kind of turn against Agatha and realize like what is she doing like
Well,
because everybody knows she's got skeletons in her closet.
she does, but I would say episode 5 is the first time that I've thought to myself, "Oh no, she's actually still a villain. She's a terrible person." Like
Yeah, yeah.
she hasn't really changed at all. And the arc isn't really going in this area of she becomes more of a team player because I kind of like that so far, 5 episodes in, because I think the cliche thing to do would be to turn her into like an anti-hero. And we've seen that we've seen that done and redone and done and redone even prior to the MCU. Like, okay, they're an anti-hero. It's like, well, no, Agatha's actually done some really evil things in this universe, in the
Mm-hmm.
MCU, 400 some years old or whatever. Not that she didn't have like some messed up upbringing. They do kind of delve into in that episode 5 the history of her coven had with led by her mom was going to turn on her. Again, just so brilliantly tying real Marvel cinematic stories into real history, right? How it could
Mm-hmm.
coincide with what we know as. But regardless, you know, shout out the original writers of the comics back in the day. that was what my takeaway was. I was like, oh, okay, and then it literally leads to Alice's death, which again, I am operating on the under the assumption in this show that the deaths are permanent, because so far for me they have been. Obviously, you've seen more than me, so I don't necessarily want to expand on that. But I will say that the end of this episode really, really turned me through, threw me for a genuine loop, because I was kind of one of those things where I was like, why is the internet like freaking out? Like a couple weeks ago, like, why is the internet freaking out about this latest episode? And yeah, the show definitely turns on a dime. Um, wow. But I had said for the entire time that we know something's up with this kid. Something's up with this kid. He's a significant character. I literally sat here and you sat here when we were first talking about the show thinking that he was Mephisto. You have to just bear with me in terms of what we know in episode 5. I believe the next episode, Familiar by Thy Side, the sixth one, is his backstory. So I haven't seen that yet, but I would like to just ask you, Casen, what was your initial reaction to that, the end of episode 5? That's as much as you can really comment.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of there was a lot of speculation over who he was. And so what the correct answer had been thrown out there. And so I wasn't entirely shocked, but I think definitely sort of the moment in which it happened sort of surprised me.
Right, and
Um,
Marvel since has said who it is, correct? They said the week it happened,
yeah,
which
yeah,
it's Billy Maximoff, correct?
yeah. It's Billy. Yeah,
It's Billy. So one of the twins, of course, teen. How is he here?
yeah,
How is he this age? A lot of questions, obviously,
yeah. So
especially with yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, it all. I mean, stay tuned for all your questions on that. But
For sure.
the yeah, definitely. I thought that the scene at the very end, to which Agatha's like, like, you're just like your mother, and then I watching that, I was like, of course. You're like,
Well,
of course.
right, right. But at the same time, I think in that moment, Agatha was like assuming that it's her son. I don't think Agatha knew in that moment
No,
whose son,
she did think, I think, for a while that it was hers,
her own.
but then at the end of episode 4, Rio tells her that it's not.
Mm.
And so
Oh, that's right. That's right. That had already happened. That happened in the previous episode.
and so
That being said, I don't think Agatha believed it, because it's like the second episode. It's like, well, it's gotta be,
yeah,
gotta be mine.
I do think that she realized that there were, I think, some things that he was doing, but I think she realized
Mm.
that there was a lot of Wanda in him. Um mainly because she's like, there's, your power can only come from somebody super strong, and
Yeah,
there's only one person that that is this strong, and it's the Scarlet Witch.
yeah. I'm literally making the M on my head.
Yeah.
The reveal was very cool. I look forward to catching up and getting to the place where my plan is by our next show, which I'm gonna really try hard to make not too long from now. I'm gonna be fully caught up, so maybe we can even open the show talking about where we are up to this point. Because even if it's like post Halloween, whatever, we'll figure something out. But yeah, I will say I like the idea of this turning on a dime to, okay, so this is now like a hero villain show, but it's not in the way we thought. It's sort of like, because one of the things I think he reacted to, Billy Maximoff, was how callous the other witches were to Alice's death. It's like, okay, we've done a trial per now, and like we've done 3 trials, and there's 2 of us that are down. It's like, is this just how witches operate? And for as much as they don't like Agatha, like Jen and the other one were like, yeah, like whatever, it's this is what happens. And Agatha just kind of going along with them. I'm like, okay, so you all suck. Like, okay, got it. Like, it's just like there's some elements. Some of you are worse than others, but you're all just a basic level of not good. So, yeah, maybe you all do deserve to be put in your place. Yeah, yeah. Let's make the rest of
Yeah.
this show about taking you all down.
I mean, I would love to know your thoughts on the show so far, as far as like the quality of the show. Because I want to know your thoughts now before we go into the back half of the season.
Correct. So
Mhm.
far, I'm liking it a lot. I can't go as far as to say I love it yet because the mystery's there, the intrigue is there. I feel a lot like halfway through WandaVision, where if by the end of the show, WandaVision, I would have told you that was really, really well done, and I ultimately loved the whole journey. I think I will be able to say that about this show by the end. I can say that this has been a genuine surprise, and I really want to say this too. What worries me is that there's going to be implications in this, and that a lot of Marvel fans are going to skip this one. Where I'm like, this has been so good. This has been too good to skip so far.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, this is also done by Jack Schaefer, who created
who was
WandaVision.
WandaVision? Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and it shows. I mean,
one hundred
it's a
percent.
lot of the same stuff in terms of thriller.
The
I
story's
mean, this is
unfolding slowly.
yeah. I will say, I would not to spoil anything, but when you
No,
get there, episode 7 is one of the most insane things I've ever seen Marvel put out
really
in terms of how much I enjoyed the viewing experience. We'll talk more in depth of it later, but
cool.
I think you'll find it cool.
Okay, very very awesome. Well, that's good to that's very very good to put out there just for some IMDb rankings here. I mean, if you're skipping out on this show, which if you've listened this long, you either don't care or whatever. But I mean, they've all been like 7.5, 7.2, 7.3, whatever. Wake Thy Power was 7.9. Number 6 is 8.2. Number 7, Death's Hand is 9.2 in terms of
Yes,
reviews.
yes. When
Which
when
I'm
I when
like,
I when I
whoa.
tell you that it, I really don't want to spoil it. I'm not going to spoil anything for
No, it's
you
fine.
because it just I'm just excited for you to see that because
Cool.
it's my favorite episode of the season so far. Six and 7 are for me 1 and 2 for the season so far.
So it looks like this
Um,
is going to speed to an ending, which is
it
which is
does, it
awesome.
does. I think the back half is going to be much quicker, much better, and more insane than the first 5 for sure.
Insane.
So
Love it.
it
Love the sound of it.
so we're at 7 this week. 8 and 9 both come out next week for the finale.
Okay.
So it'll be wrapped up next week.
Maybe we will have to plan. I won't make any promises right now, but maybe we'll have to plan for a post Halloween show for the next go around.
Mhm.
But that's all we got. I mean, so far, I'm obviously not going to rate it up. We'll rate it up with our rating system at the end of the show. But this show is bringing it. I really got to say, the fall shows when we were sitting here a year ago talking about Loki season 2 and the mystery and hilarity that was that. I really just have looked forward to knowing that the Marvel show is going to be very cool in the fall.
Yeah, I mean I hope that they take notice of of what works. I
Yeah,
mean,
I agree.
we've seen what doesn't work and we've seen what does. And so like you have to listen to your Jack Schaefers, you have to listen to your Matt Shackmans, you have to listen to the people that are making shows that people like
Hmm.
and make more of that.
You got to let people
So
cook too.
yeah,
And
exactly.
I think Kevin Feige. Let's be real. He hasn't ever put out something that was like truly atrocious. There's always been massive, but like that's why when people call certain things from Marvel bad, I'm like stack Marvel's bad things against like the Acolyte, and come back and talk to me. You know what I mean? In terms of enjoyment, in terms of continuity and stuff. They're not comparable. I'm sorry. The quality is still very high. So that's why I'm kind of sitting here thinking, look, if you let Matt Marvel go back to the lab, that's why it's going to be great. That's why I'm really excited for next calendar year, all the stuff
Mhm.
we're going to get, because I really think that Marvel's going to get back to the lab, so to speak. And
We're gonna have a lot of good stuff coming out next year. And so definitely we're got a lot to look forward to.
for sure. But that's what we got, man. Thank you everyone so much for watching, listening, and Casen to you as well. Just as life goes on and work and life happens, we still find the time to convene here at the junction. Uh, any final thoughts, my friend?
Uh I just want you to get caught up on episode 6 and 7 because I just been talking to you about it.
Sounds good. I'm gonna work on that like this weekend. I can't make any promises on the literally tonight, but I will. I promise before our next show, I'll be back. And
Okay.
like I said, depending on circumstances, we might just open the show with the end of it because why not?
Mm-hmm.
So sounds
Perfect.
good, man. This is Kellan,
This is Casen.
and as always, we'll see you at the next stop.